So it's very exciting for us that Mark is back with another adaptation of sorts. So Mark is very well known for taking many different sources and creating shows, sometimes completely original, sometimes pulled from like, what's called Roosevelt. Eleanor was multiple sources.
Right.
Happy's Mountain Earth was the book Happy's Mountain Earth. So how did you get to forgiveness?
Sure. I read an article about this process and read that it's the only one of its kind. And I thought the idea that they had 10 minutes to present their case was just inherently dramatic. And so I flew down to Minneapolis when they were doing one of these sessions. They only do 2 a year. And I watched it, and there was a tension in the room. There was certainly a tension of the tension of the people testifying. And so I thought it would be much more interesting if the audience was put in the position of judging. So we present the audience's judgment plus then the governor's panel's ideas. And it's just really interesting that it's different every night. Reactions are different every night. Never got yays and boos both in a show at the same time. So it's been exciting. It really has been.
So when you went to Minneapolis, St. Paul technically, how many cases did you see? And then how did you go about figuring out of all the cases you saw, how did you boil that all down? Because I think you got the transcripts for you.
Yeah.
Something like 3+ or so many hours transcripts that we cheated, put through a robot to actually type out for you. How did you decide with all that material to get down to these 4?
I think you did more than 3 hours.
I was about to say, now that I think about it, I think it's several hours transcripts.
Because I had transcripts of what I saw, but then they also sent transcripts of other sessions. So I had to go through all of them. I think it was about 500 pages of transcripts. And these are the ones that I thought would be best to present.
These ones that you actually saw in person?
I did see these in person. I must have been there at an interesting day because, and so I got to see these people and see how they reacted. And the names are changed, some of the professions are changed, things like that. But this is what they said.
So human beings sometimes are dramatic, but stuff like this could be inherently not dramatic. These are not actors.
No.
Presenting the cases of real life humans asking for pardons. How do you then take what could be maybe not the most dramatic or tension-filled or exciting monologue and turn it into an actual theatrical monologue?
Well, first of all, everything's edited, so that something that was 5 minutes is now maybe 3 minutes. So I tried to cut down on anything that wasn't essential. Also, we have some interruptions that did not happen, because to have somebody just do 10 minutes and walk off seems pretty boring too. So, but pretty much everything that the panel here says in the play were things they mentioned. Once in a while there were some inventions to just push the story along, but that was it.
So how did you decide to go to just 4 actors? Why not 6 cases and a panel of 3 and a cast of 12? Like, how did you get down? Because I know at one point there's gonna be 5, and I remember you emailed us saying no, it's gonna be 4. I could do this with 4. Like, how did you figure out the device? Rather than go the easy route, which is the governor, the 2 other people, and a bunch of people pleading their cases.
Well, you know as much as I do, you can't do a play with 12 people. That was the first thing. Then it hit me as we were going through it that every actor should have their own monologue, should have their own case. And I looked at the other alternatives for cases. I didn't find them particularly compelling. And I thought, well, it's either going to be longer and not as compelling, or more condensed. So it's slightly over an hour now.
And one of the exciting things we would talk about is that when you were there, if we had gone about having the 3 panelists are consistent the whole time,
right?
We would have had very specific casting of Governor Tim Walz.
That's right.
As the leader of the adjudication. just because he seems to be quite newsworthy right now.
Yes, he
Like,
is.
doing some interesting things. What was it like seeing him oversee this panel, which is once again the only one in the entire country? And as in Minnesotan, I can say we are very smart and empathetic, brilliant people. But what was it like seeing this thing being overseen by
Right.
Governor Walz?
Well, he talked to everyone before they even started. And he said a lot of the people you're going to see have had drug problems in the past, poverty, all of it. He talked for about 10 minutes. He was an incredibly empathetic person. I mean, I certainly didn't know, I never see him in the newspaper. But he treated everyone with dignity. He really believes in this process, and that showed. So it was wonderful to see him in that way.
And what is the room like when the parties are denied? What is it? Is it as raucous as our audience
No.
is? Is it booing?
There's no booing. There's no applause if somebody gets pardoned. There's absolute, people are asked to be silent. And it feels like a big courtroom. So I think people are in that mindset.
Before we move on to questions from the audience, because I can talk to whatever I want, you are a great adapter, storyteller, and a brilliant playwright. Let's talk about the Magdalene,
Yes.
which is a stage read of Mark's newest play we'll be doing on September 1st here at 3 p.m. as a fundraiser for our Julianne Boyd New Works Fund. How did you tell them the story of the Magdalene and kind of how you got there in a very interesting way?
Well, the story is that 18 years after the death of Christ, the story is that Peter, who kind of exiled Mary Magdalene right after Christ's death, needs her. He needs her because Paul is coming in and he's showing great influence and he wants somebody to back him up. So after throwing her out, he has to woo her back in and asks her to come back and control the church with him. And so it's a play about the two of them. It's really about, well, the power of women, for one thing, which was easily dismissed or quickly dismissed. And also just being able to go through not only the Gospels that exist, which are very revealing when I had in my mind the character of Peter. I mean, it's amazing how many times Christ has to say things to him twice because he just doesn't get it all the time. And there's stories like he is walking ahead, Christ is walking ahead, and he hears them squabbling behind him. And this is after they almost lost their lives in the crowd. And Christ says, "What are you arguing about?" "Well, we're arguing who's the best disciple." And then there's the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, which is not included in the canon. But it's fascinating. It's fascinating to read because a lot of the jealousy came through. Why did Christ appear to you? Why does he only kiss her on the lips? I mean, these are things in the gospel. And so when I had read these things, I had always had strong feelings about, I was Catholic grammar school, high school, college, and graduate school. I am now not a practicing Catholic. The more I read about the history, the more I pulled away. And this is a way to deal with that. And I think it would represent some of the things happening at the time. I'm not claiming this everything is, but I think it would capture a lot of the feel of the time.
I think we've talked about this before, and one of these days we're going to crack this open, Mark. I'm looking at the trajectory of the things we've done with you over the years, and you bounce from topic, to style, to base out book to original idea. Like, what sparks, like, how did you go from Happiest Man to Forgiveness to Mary Magdalene? Like, what triggers you wanting to turn something into a play?
Well, it's either something you read or an image or sometimes a line. It's always different. And then you get a lot of stretches where you have nothing at all that you want to write about. You're desperate for looking at all these sources for something. I mean, I was really, after doing Dr. Ruth and doing Eleanor, and Eddie Jaku, I really only wanted to write about people who made a positive impact in the world. And I've written about a lot of historic characters in the past. And it's interesting when you try to look for American heroes. There's not as many as you would think. So that's really the quest now, is to find something new to write about.
Let's open it up to audiences. We can get the house lights up a bit. I will just say that Mark is a very open, smart person, but here at Barrington Stage, we ask two things when asking questions, and one, you ask questions, not stories, monologues, or statements. We all know how a question ends, question mark. And then the second thing we ask is that we do not pry into our panelists' personal life. You don't ask your bank teller where she went on her first date. He is at work just like I am. So can we have the house lights up a little bit more? You know what's back there? Because I am just glare right now. Sir.
Why do you think other states have not adopted the same process? And having seen it, what do you think about it?
I think it's wonderful. I think it's a wonderful process. Your heart breaks for the people who are denied. Why other states? Everybody has a different parole system. There's nobody I know of that erases your record like this has done. So why they don't do it, I don't know. I have no idea. I don't think the process has been going on so long that a lot of states have decided to copy it. But I hope it is copied. It's really worthwhile, I think.
Who was instrumental in bringing this about? Was it the governor?
The governor is the champion of it, yeah.
And one other question, because we did see the flag and loved it, and booed. Sorry about that comment, but was it the court that, did the play reflect the actual results of the court?
Yes, there are two results that are presented at the end of the play. One is the audience's votes, and then one are the actual results.
Thank you.
And it's interesting to see how the audience reacts to the actual results.
Not everyone votes?
People will boo at different things. And I don't think yet there's been, maybe there has been, but every vote is different, every night is different. Some nights they free somebody, some nights they don't.
I'll say the first night that we had the performance, they started booing. It was a bit terrifying.
It was.
It felt like a British pantomime in here, and it was like you could kind of see on one of the actors' faces, Joey just had this look, and I was like, "Is that Joey with the look of shock, or the character look of shock?" I think it was a mix of both because we weren't anticipating. We're clapping yes, but like the actual first night booing at the panel was just like, "Oh, this is different for us." Yes, we'll go over here.
Two things. Do the people who want to have their record expunged, do they have the benefit of legal counsel? And number two, given the advocacy for education in the penal system in Minnesota by the governor's wife, did she have some influence on this kind of activity?
I don't know that. She might well have, I'm not sure. And for the first part of your question.
Was there legal counsel available?
Well, remember they've already been judged. They've already served their sentences. So they are up there on their own. I have seen, maybe there were two cases where there was an attorney who was with them, who was presenting for them instead, because they're not speakers, and some are very eloquent and some are not. So, but there was never any arguing. I mean, you presented to the panel, that was it. There was no back and forth with presenting some defenses to their acts.
Thank you. I worked in a jail for 25 years, so I have a lot of experience with this kind of stuff. And I have two questions. One is I found myself not thinking about, forgiveness, but thinking about trust. You know, do I trust that these people will not commit again? So it seemed to me, and this is what I went through in the jail when I was working with these guys when they left.
Right.
Because we did the same thing, we had a lot of classes, education. Do I trust? And so anyway, so that's what I was evaluating, more than forgiveness. I'm willing to forgive them, but do I trust that they will not do it? So that was just a comment, more or
Right.
less.
Well, one of the evaluators does say that. How can we trust you won't be back here in 3 years and 5 years?
Yes. And then the other thing was, was about 2 points that either I missed, because I wasn't paying attention during the play, or wasn't there. The woman who was convicted of shooting somebody, she shot somebody. Now, were both people involved in attacking her son?
Right.
Both were.
Right.
But she shot the one that wasn't physically attacking him at the time. Is that correct?
I'm not sure if it's written that one person was attacking the son or both were.
Okay, so they both were. Okay.
Well, I'm not sure both were. I'm not sure I have that both did in the play. They were both there to get the money.
Oh, okay.
And then she shot at whoever was attacking her son. In real life, it wasn't her son and it wasn't a store, but it was the same situation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's fine. That's.
Yeah. But the frustrating thing sometimes is, I mean, that's come up in a lot of people's head, including my own, is this defending a loved one.
Oh, I would shoot the guy. I can tell
okay,
you.
well.
I can tell you that right away. There's no
Yeah,
question.
but then for her to get put in jail for it, to me, was surprising.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there are facts that we don't know, or as an audience, we don't know, because we don't have the records for us.
And it's a fine line that Mark's been dancing, is that you could go in and add a bunch of backstory, but then you're
Right.
adding backstory to a story that exists and you don't know what the backstory is.
Right.
So there are holes. I know that's very frustrating for some of the actors,
Mhm.
was that there are things missing. We don't know, and you didn't want to fabricate too many things.
Right, I did.
And I know the actors also had issues with getting into the vernacular of some of these non-public speaking,
Right.
real people who speak in a very, especially Peggy speaks in a very
Oh, yeah.
snaky kind of way. Sneaky, what? They're way back.
Right, yeah.
The cases that you chose, there were 2 black, 2 white, and the 2 black people were the ones where it was actually denied. Did race play a part in your selection of those particular characters?
That's a good question. It's come up a lot. In reality, 3 of these people were black, not 2. We were initially going for, we wanted a real range of racial backgrounds. And casting, we had somebody who couldn't do it at the last minute, and we filled in. Certainly for our casting, it had nothing to do with it. In real life, I didn't see any difference in the way white or black people were treated. You know, I can't say what's in people's minds, but I personally didn't feel that.
Yeah, we were very open to the racism in casting.
Yeah.
It's just kind of how this fell. I'll find a pattern. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, yeah, I was curious, when you observed the process, did you think any of the board was actually persuaded to pardon or deny based on that 10 minutes?
I think they were, and I think some were, and I think it's said in the play. Some had character witnesses that came up, and that also influenced them. Yeah, but I think the way they presented themselves and answered questions had people who were on the fence jump one way or the other.
The reason I asked, I just read Robert Sapolsky's book, Determined. He's a neurobiologist. He argues everything is determined. There's no free will.
Right.
You may not be able to predict what's going to happen, but it's determined.
Well, as theater makers, that would be very sad if that was true.
Well, people can change, but as a result of experience.
And the blue shirt here.
Does the board of pardons ever tell the people who are presenting
why it is that they're being denied? And, or did you ever know why they were being denied?
They give a short explanation, but, or the ones they release, they say the board has to protect public safety, that's paramount, but in your case, we feel that you won't reoffend. And some say we're not convinced.
Realize my peripheral.
Yes, the book of Mary Magdalene, is that in the Apocrypha that didn't make it through the
Yes.
Council of Nicaea, got edited out?
Right, Gnostic Gospel, and a lot of it is missing. I think there were maybe only 13 pages left, but it's fascinating to read.
I'm just curious about the reality of the proceedings out in their semi-court. How quickly do they come to a judgment? Do they tell them right away? Do they give them any rationale, or do they see the vote?
It's amazingly quickly. I mean, here, it takes longer than it did then. And that's only because we're counting the audiences. Because they probably got together, you could see them talking. That answer.
Do you want to tell them the thing you did include in the show about the governor's vote?
Which one was it?
That the governor's vote,
Oh,
they had to go ahead.
well, there has to be 2 out of 3 that agree.
And one of them has to agree with the governor.
Right.
Because the governor's actually one pardoning them.
Right.
So if the other 2 want to pardon, the governor doesn't, it doesn't fly. Because he's the governor and he pardons. That'd been fun to add into the mix here. Over there.
Thank you. It's public record, but do you use, I haven't seen the show yet, but do you use people's real names?
No, and I change occupations sometimes, I try to disguise them.
Have you had anyone, and I don't know the history of the production of this yet, but have you gotten has anyone recognized themselves in your text and?
Well, this is the first production. I got all this through the Board of Pardons representatives, so they knew what I was doing. And no, I so far, nothing, and I've been debating this whole thing. If it goes on other productions, especially how I would work with that. Should they be contacted, should they not? So, I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you, I thought the play was fantastic.
Yeah.
One thing is troubling me, the case of the woman who shot the person that she didn't really
Right.
intend to shoot. And it seemed to me the way it was written, she presented a very compelling case of her rehabilitation, lack of danger to society, all the things that were supposed to go into a pardon.
Right.
And then there was the surprise of the witness, the victim's daughter, who made a very strong plea for how this had seriously impacted the family. And from, not being a lawyer, but from just a justice point of view, it seemed to me that of course, a victim is gonna have serious repercussions.
Should point you towards the question, please.
Yeah, so the question is, did that actually happen? Isn't it unusual that just because a victim came and said this has really traumatized us, that could affect the future of the woman presenting her case to not get pardoned? Is that significant enough?
Yeah, somebody accused me of being too harsh on the woman by having her pardon denied. But I explained that wasn't my choice. I mean, this was what the panel decided. And I felt the same thing as you did. When I heard her speaking, my heart was with her.
That was
And
heavily
the boo,
booed.
that was one where they
Well,
huge
boo.
booing.
But
Yeah.
then, if you can picture it, you had this woman standing on a stage like this, and there were more than one relative. It was more than the daughter of the man who was shot. And they appeared, because they weren't there, on giant screens. And so you imagine these people talking into the screen, and here's this person much smaller. I don't know if that influenced anybody, but they just sided with the victims.
Yeah, it just seemed miscarriage of justice, in my opinion.
Well, I wouldn't
But
argue.
it was a fascinating play.
Yeah,
See what that unfolded.
thank you.
Thank you.
So that, you said that every night, or there's differences in the audience reaction to this, which suggests a certain amount of subjectivity.
Right.
And I'm wondering, two questions. One is, in the real world, how subjective did you think the process was versus what you would assume is a more objective court situation when they got sentenced? And two, how did you decide how to present that in a play to address the subjectivity issue?
Well, I just stuck to what actually happened. And the audience makes jumps, in their own mind, and it certainly prejudices the audience play a part in it. But I was surprised hearing the actual verdict in 2 out of the 4 cases. But like I said, I had to stick to what factually happened. And the audience's feelings are sometimes very different than that.
Can you say which two?
Well, we talked just now about the woman who shot and the sex offender.
Exactly.
And the interesting thing that in our discussion when developing this was how everyone's gonna vote. The dream system is everyone has like a little clicker, they click and put it down. And we talk about passing ballots, the end, it's like passing the play at a church. And we talked, one of our concerns with the placards that we were using was the concern was that people would be like, oh no, everyone else denied, oh, I'll deny too. And I've got to say multiple times this year, I've not seen one card. Like no one goes, oh, so I hope, no, I'm not, like, it's not like group thing. It's just very interesting because we from the back of the house can see the inverse of what all of you voted. And we can literally out there just like, the number of times just be like, all we'll just see is a sea of red in front of us. And you're like, okay. But we really thought that people would be like, oh, what's my neighbor doing? But everyone's just like, bam, voting. And it's a fascinating show from back there. And it must be fascinating for them to just be like, oh, okay, that's obvious.
And the thing that's funny too, I'm sure you noticed, is there used to be an explanation before each of these. You can vote, talk with each other, and that is all cut down now, because before they're even done talking, the hands are up. People just some people have their hands up in the dark.
We also were scared, we're like, will they actually talk to each other during the deliberations? Yeah, you do. Sometimes the audience starts talking while the show's still going on. It's been fascinating. It's like sport out here. Yes, so glad to hear Rena.
Okay. First of all, I compliment you on the way this was staged, because there was a realism to us as an audience in your staging. And I think that's important. But my question is, some people had character witnesses with them,
Right.
and some did not.
Right.
Did that have an effect or a prejudice one way or another on the panel people?
They certainly recognized that one of the people, I think she's quoted in the play, said having Ms. Brown here was a good thing for you. Having the priest there for the sex offender, he was a very impressive speaker. So I'm sure it had some effect.
And there's no rule, though, about whether you can have that person, somebody else with you or not?
No, they say you can, but those were the only ones that actually had somebody. I mean, actually, of the ones I didn't put in, there were a number more, but.
Mark has done a very good job balancing. Every actor plays panelists. They all have one monologue of asking for pardon, and then they all play one witness.
Right.
Kind of, otherwise, we could be here for days. They're just changing hands constantly.
I'm curious, how were the members of the panel selected, the pardon panel?
I think it's standard. It's the Attorney General of the state is one, and the other, I think, is the head of the Board of Corrections. I could be wrong on that one.
The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court.
Chief Justice, that's right, yeah.
The Minnesota Supreme Court.
So that remains constant, I think.
You said that it's the governor and one other is the minimum it takes to pardon, which puts it, in my view, in a different light, because normally the governor can pardon anybody
Right.
he wants. So what this does is, the governor is saying, I guess it was Tim Walz that said it, I'm gonna limit my own power. I cannot do this pardon unless I get Chief Justice and someone else. And so, and I get to see them, because he can pardon without ever meeting him or seeing him, so he's limiting his ability, although I guess he can pardon people on
Sir,
the
if you
side.
point
Right.
towards a question, please.
Is that my understanding correct?
Yes, it is.
Right here.
If I understand that it's not just a pardon, the whole record is expunged, I think you said,
Yeah.
from these people. And when I was explaining this to my very perverse son, he said, oh, that's a terrible idea. If you were an employer, wouldn't you want to know somewhat about the background? Are you asking the audience to assume that this is a good process or not when you're presenting this?
Well, the audience can decide whatever they choose. I mean, I personally feel it's a good process. And I think that the panel knows more about it than we do. I mean, they have files on these people, and I'm sure can read through it, which I hope they do before each case. Although there was one where they discovered something in the files as it was going on. So I don't know why they didn't catch that.
Marty?
In your research, how many people that have been denied come back after 5 years? And what is their record with that?
I don't have the statistics on that. I know that among 20 people, they told 2 people they can come back in 5 years. And that's a big thing, because even if they're denied, they have to be selected to be one of the people to come back. So it might be 10 years, it might be 15 years. But if they specify you can come back in 5 years, that's actually a break, though it doesn't seem to be.
So it's 20 people 2 times a year.
Right? It's only, and you can imagine how many people apply.
Question, to get into that setup, do the former convicts have to be sending an application?
There's an application you have to fill out, and you just then have to wait and see what their decision is.
And actually on their clipboards are the actual applications, you can find them online. So you can go fill it out for fun. Yes?
How did you get permission to do this?
Well, everything is a public record. I mean, it's all.
Anybody can go?
Yeah, you could get one if you wanted to. They've changed it, and that's why it was so difficult. They used to do transcripts, actual transcripts. Now they have everything recorded. So if somebody wants info, you have to go to the recording. But to get that get that into a transcript required the robots to do it.
We just put it through an AI robot. We're like, we could pay someone, Lord knows how much money, how many hours to sit there and do this. We're like, thank you, robot. AI, you're good for some things.
Right.
Time just for a few more questions.
Right, so I absolutely love the show, it's amazing. This might be a directorial question, but at the very end of the show, when they started to sing, I was like, oh, wow, what's going on? And I was wondering, is that something that you put into the play, or was that a directorial note or direction?
Well, the director wanted to try that with a hymn, and I didn't like that idea. I just thought it was just not the place or the time for it. So I just wrote something and had my partner in musicals do the music for it.
I'll just say the play is directed by the great Ron Lagosino, who directed Happiest Man on Earth for us. I wish he was here, because what he's done up here is kind of
amazing.
Stellar. What could have been just like 4 people on stools and like put on off hats. It's great, and so dynamic and brilliant.
He is brilliant, and also Brian Prather, who did the sets, I think is terrific.
It's like being in the most beautiful conference room ever. Yes.
I haven't seen the play yet, I've seen it next Sunday.
We spoiled so many things for you.
What?
I feel like we spoiled so many things for you.
Oh, no, it's okay, I had a general idea what it's about. Why is this only done every 2 years?
I don't know.
Oh.
No, it's done, I'm sorry, it's twice
Twice
a year.
Then
Twice
why
a
is
year.
this done twice a year, not more?
Well, you're taking 2 days of 4 days of the governor's time to do this, because one is all of these, and then they're doing a second day of minimalizing prison terms. So trying to take some of the years off. Now, I didn't stay for that. think that was as interesting. But
So how does this program get actually done? Because it doesn't sound like it's done in that many places.
no, it's not.
So what's the force behind it? Is it the prison system? Is it
No, the governor just wanted to see this process.
Okay.
And so there's I guess it's a Department of Parole, I'm not sure what they call it, but they coordinate all this.
And if you look, there's lots of really great articles about it in the Star Tribune, in the Pioneer Press of Minnesota, as well as the New York Times. There's been a lot being written about this now because it's so unique.
I'd like to ask the actors how the audience response affected them. Has that been done at all?
Well, yeah, I mean, I get the response of the actors when they go backstage. There's a little competition of who gets pardoned and who doesn't. And that's kind of done in fun. I mean, the thing they have to remember is that they are not the ones being judged. It's the character being judged, and that must be difficult to.
Yeah, they have to find ways to keep the light back there, because if you're getting denied pardon 8 times a week, no matter what you do, and you're sure the audience loves you, but they keep on denying you a pardon, you gotta find a way to keep going. Just a couple more questions, yes.
Endless compliment. You have a great range of plays that are unbelievable, and a great number of plays. So
Thank you very much.
I have to off you on also for the
This is our 17th Mark St. Germain production, and I think your 12th world premiere with us? Probably. Someone, look at our archivist back there who probably knows the number. But yes, this has been one of many Mark St. Germain shows, so many topics. Yes?
What is the process by which this play might be brought to the attention of other people across the country?
It's really luck and happenstance. I mean, when I finish something, after I bring it to Barrington Stage first, I will send it to theaters who have done my plays a number of times. And then it will get published, and then it will be sent out. So if a play goes to New York, it hastens the process because more people are aware of it. But even the plays that don't go to New York, a theater will see other theaters are doing it. You can see the numbers build up. And some of them go, some of them have been done around the world. Which, I mean, the Freud play, the dancing lessons play, which wasn't in New York, toured Europe, and a bunch of them.
Yeah, we also have an agent who sends it out, and then we'll start sending it out to theaters to work out a short list of actually theaters in Minnesota, which we need to talk about, that I know would be interested. So we also do work on our end to start to get it out there, because there's nothing worse, and Mark knows this, there's nothing worse as a developer, playwright who plays, to put on an amazing show that's never seen again. It's like sending your kid off to summer camp and they don't come back. It's like, what did I do wrong? Especially if you like that kid. They won't come back. But it's very heartbreaking, the number of shows we've done that never. So it's part of our job as a part of the American Theater and as a developer in the American Theater to really make sure our works don't end here. And that's one of my main
This is very unusual, Barrington Stage, and the relationship I have with Barrington is very unusual. I mean, usually if a play is written, they'll send it to their agent will send it out, and I've been in so many offices with piles of scripts. Now it's a little different because of computers, but to be supported in this way is a dream.